Hey, welcome back to the Motorcyclist Podcast. This is where we talk about motorcycles and what makes them great. Topics on the show constantly change, but the one thing that always remains is two-wheeled fun. In this episode, we're a gang of four instead of a gang of three. So, I'm Justin Dodds, executive editor. We've got editor Adam Wahid. We've got Jeff Allen, photo director, and we've got associate editor Evan Allen. Today, we are going to talk about the 2025 KTM 390 Enduro R. Both Evan and Adam just went to the press launch on this bike. It's the first time riding it. And so we're going to get their thoughts on this new dual sport. I don't know if it's really a dual sport or not. So we're going to find out from these guys. But we're going to talk about the 390 platform. I mean, it's a Swiss Army knife. It's been in the Duke, the RC, the Adventure, and now an Enduro, and it's going to be coming in a Supermoto as well. So they're starting to throw that engine and everything, and we've always kind of liked that engine. So when we get to the 390 Enduro R, it's like a touring friendly EXE or 690 Enduro R with approachability, I guess. We're going to find out. It's built in India by Baja, but it's a KTM through and through. So let's get into the specs, and Adam's going to fill us in on the specs, and then we'll talk about the bike and their riding impressions.
Yeah, cool. Well, the 2025 390 Enduro R is, let's start with the price because that's the biggest thing. It retails for $5,500 in the United States, if you can even believe that. $5,500.
Is that how does that relate to like the Duke and the RC? Is that pretty comparable?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty comparable in that segment, but like think about $5,500. Like the DRZ 4S is $8,000.
Yeah,
so $9,000. Sorry, $9,000. So that's like crazy,
Yeah. I think it is cheaper.
It's basically free. Go get two of them.
Yeah. And it is
they're small.
It's cheaper than the Duke. At least last time I checked the Duke pricing by a few $100.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
cool.
So
this thing's powered by KTM's stroked 399cc water-cooled single-cylinder engine. Dual red camshafts with a 4-valve cylinder head. It's good for, upwards of 40 horsepower, probably around 43, 44. And then, it's got, claimed around 30 pound-feet of torque. And it weighs 364 pounds, so a little bit heavy, especially compared to the DRZ 4S. But it's got adjustable WP suspension, front and back, though the shock doesn't have a linkage like the DRZ 4S. And then we have Brembo-derived BYBRE, which is a Brembo-owned subsidiary out of India, calipers. So with switchable ABS, and the cool thing about the ABS on this Enduro R is you can completely disable it. So you can have ABS on, you can have front ABS on, rear ABS disabled, or you can have full ABS disabled, which is really neat. Nice. Then we've got, a seat height around 35 inches, not too high, not too low. And then, of course, a off-road wheel set, 21-inch front, 18-inch rear spoked aluminum wheels. And then, of course, we have KTM's small rectangular TFT dash with ride-by-wire traction control and those two riding modes, street and off-road, but you can customize either or to be whatever you want them to be. Nice. And that's kind of a rundown of the $5,500 390 Enduro R.
So I have a question. The frame is still like a trellis frame like the other 390s, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's powder-coated orange. Looks real nice. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is probably one of the reasons why it weighs a little bit more, right? It's got this big kind of trellis frame setup on it.
Yeah.
But
it is redesigned over the Duke, so it's similar, but they did beef it up for off-road duty.
Right on.
Yeah.
I do like that it has 21 and 18 wheels rather than 1917 or 2117. Like it has real dirt bike sized wheels, which gives you a lot more leeway in tire choices.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
But the tires that come stock are really good, so I would
they're
give
awesome.
them a try if you buy it before you go.
What are the tires?
Metzler Karoo 4.
Oh wow,
That was,
they come with Karoo 4s at that point.
Yeah.
Like we keep talking about, it's $5,500, and it's got like good tires on it.
Premium, those are premium tires.
Some cheap, like, IRCs or Seat or something like that tires. That's pretty.
Those
sick.
tires come on variations of the R1300 GS.
Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah, that's super cool. Right on. So then those are the details, which it makes it sound pretty tasty. Before we get into riding impressions, I want to know, like, who's this bike like aimed for? So Evan, tell me, like, who are they selling this bike to? Like, is it a hardcore dual sport rider? Is it like a beginning dual sport rider? Is it somewhere in between? Like, who do they want to sell this bike to?
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like it could be any of those riders. Like, definitely an entry level sort of beginner getting your feet wet in the dual sport space. But also, I feel like
why would you say that? Is it like seat height or power delivery or why?
Well, I mean, affordability, yeah, power delivery, seat height a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's just if you're trying to get into dual sport riding, I don't know, it's just $5,500.
Yeah,
it's definitely, an entry level dual sport in a sense, but I think an experienced rider will get a lot out of this bike. It's funny because we rode the DRZ 4S not that long ago, and then I actually commuted on it last night and this morning on the 4S we have at the office. And the last bike before I rode that was the 390s up in Mammoth, and it's just interesting. It seems like, this 390 is it feels like a street bike that's kind of made for off-road riding, where the DRZ feels a lot more of like an enduro made for street riding. So it seems like they both approach this category from the opposite ends of the spectrum. And
well said.
Yeah. And so, like, I feel like a really experienced rider will benefit and enjoy the 390 enduro because of its road manners. Like, it kind of feels like this new school dual sport of, is it a lightweight adventure bike? Is it a dual sport? Like, it almost has this like kind of hybrid feel. So I feel like it's going to be good for someone that is going to do dual sport riding with a lot of pavement or a good amount of pavement and just like fast fire roads. If you're going to do something more technical and tight riding, maybe the DRZ. But yeah, it feels like a bike that can please the beginner rider and the expert rider.
Nice. Like, a thing that always happens with these KTMs, which I've noticed, is like they claim it's a beginner bike, or they claim it's for someone getting into the brand, but it always seems that people add it as like a second bike to their garage too, experienced riders, because they've historically performed pretty darn well, and they're fun. They've been fun bikes, so people are like, oh, I'm just going to add that to my. So they may be trying to get the beginner, but they end up getting the expert because they've made it pretty decent.
Yeah.
So, okay. I would think, like, there's an embargo on the 390 Adventure R, so we can't really talk about it, but like, it seems like they're kind of splitting the difference between dual sport and adventure, and like, it may be like for adventure bike riders that don't want to have like a 500-pound pig in the sand, but maybe that's the adventure and this is something different. I don't know.
Adventure light.
Yeah. What do you think, Adam? Is it adventure, or is it something different?
No. I mean, you can adventure on this bike. It's basically someone who wants, a dual sport or an adventure bike without, a typical front fairing, wants that more sporty look, maybe a little bit more minimalist design, because, it does look more sporty and more minimalist, kind of like Ducati's like hyper motard kind of style a little bit, Okay. So, but obviously with way more off-road chops. But I mean, they kind of are a little bit, converge a little bit, but also just really the styling and just the more minimalist design is what I think someone would want the 390 Enduro R versus the 390 Adventure R.
Yeah, like maybe someone that doesn't want to worry about dropping it and screwing up the fairings and screwing up the bigger windscreen, and like, with those, any adventure bike, as you grow in size, when you drop it, more things break, right?
So yeah, I mean, you could say that, but just the overall proportions, it's just the adventure bike looks a little bigger. It really isn't that much bigger in reality, but it just appears a little bit bigger. Gotcha. And if you're really not going on these crazy long rides, you're not really going on the highway a lot. I mean, just ride the Enduro 390 Enduro R.
It's
I mean,
awesome.
if you're just,
Okay.
you know, if
Yeah,
you're just going on shorter rides around, you know, your cabin or just, you know, that kind of stuff, that bike would
That's
make
what
sense
it's
to me.
Okay.
If you live
Yeah.
close to the trail.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's almost the like styling and what your budget is, you know. Like if you really love the look of the adventure and you have an additional $1,500, I mean, yeah, I think
Yeah.
people would just go with
we can't
that.
say too much about the adventure
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now. We'll get in trouble with KTM, but
Looking at your guys' like social media posts and things like that, I mean, it looked like you rode some pretty fun, like even maybe challenging trail, like single track kind of stuff on the R or the Enduro.
Tell us like where the intro was and what you guys rode before we talk about how you guys thought about it. Like give us some set the scene.
Yeah, because obviously KTM would bring you to a place where they thought the bike would, you know, be the most enjoyable.
Yeah, we went to Mammoth. It was sweet. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, what is Mammoth? Like 10,000 feet of elevation? We were up at elevation, so I kind of thought, probably hurting the bike's engine performance a little bit. But yeah, we rode. It was a great ride on both days. We did everything from twisty pavement, kind of highway pavement, single track, fast fire roads, bumpy 2-track. Like we did kind of the whole scope of dual sport riding, I would say, with getting some good single track in there. That was fun and a little bit challenging. And I got stuck on one of the hill climbs. It was like super deep and sandy. Yeah. And so it was just great weather. Yeah.
And
So-
I saw they let you do have some time on the motocross track, Mammoth Motocross.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got to go and do ride a little section of Mammoth Motocross track because we were there the week before the big amateur race was going down, and yeah, so we got to hit some jumps and blow up some berms, and yeah, it was pretty impressive.
So did they say anything about the altitude and power, like, you know, because I mean, like, yeah, 10,000 feet, like that saps quite a bit of power, and you're taking a small bore bike up to that altitude. Like, seems like not the greatest choice to have the press evaluate the engine performance when they're like, you know, at that altitude.
Yeah, I do. That was one thing I noticed about the engine is it doesn't have a whole lot of bottom end. It's really more of a mid to top end engine, I feel like. And we've spent time on this engine on the Duke, even the Vitplin and Svartplin 401 from Husqvarna. It's basically the same engine. And those bikes down at sea level riding them, yeah, definitely a mid to top end engine. But I feel like they still had some pretty good bottom end, like some good, you could get out of a corner pretty good. I didn't notice that as much on this press launch. And so I think maybe the altitude had a little bit to do with that. I will say this.
Understandable.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get some riding impressions. I'm going to let you both just kind of talk about it and bounce ideas off each other. And like, so go tell us what it's like. Like,
yeah. What do you think,
talk
Wahid?
about like overall, and then we'll get into engine, chassis,
Okay.
suspension, brakes, type ergonomics. So let's just start overall. Tell me overall what you thought.
Yeah, I thought it was nice, like a cool bike, like a worthy competitor to the DRZ 4S.
Really?
You know, a little bit different, you know, but still, you know, it does the same kind of thing. So yeah, I liked it. You know, it's the craziest thing is just that the engine, like it's crazy how fast it revs, and just I mean, it just revs. It has like no flywheel weight, so it just revs extremely quickly, and I mean, a lot of the time, I mean, the joke was like, "Oh, Hayden Deegan," because like literally the entire time we were riding that thing, it's just literally bouncing off the rev limiter, and it's got an optional electronic quick shifter, so it's easy to keep the engine on the boil, and that's how you have to ride the thing. You literally just ride it in the rev limiter area. It's actually pretty fun.
Yeah. And it's impressive that it doesn't fall on its face. Like you can just kind of keep it on the rev limiter or close to it, and you don't feel like it just like the power drops off. It's
and the gearing solid, like the ratios between each gear, like they make sense. And again, that engine has such little flywheel on it that it wants to always just be at red line, be at red line, be at red line. And when you ride the bike like that, it handles really good and it goes really good too. It just, for whatever reason, it kind of rewards that riding style for some reason. So honestly, it was a hoot, where the DRZ 4S, that thing has decent top end power, no doubt, but it definitely has a lot more, low RPM performance. So two different riding styles, but still very fun.
Yeah.
So that's the engine. What about the handling of the bike? Because I mean, that's probably going to answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. Which one they should get is like the handling and suspension aspect, like on road and off road. So start with on road handling.
I think
Go ahead, Evan.
the on-road handling with those crew, the Metzler Crew 4 tires, I was super impressed. I think when we got on some twisty pavement, I feel like you could feel that 390 Duke DNA. Like it just feels so planted and hunkered to the ground. It's got a little bit less suspension travel. I think 2 inches less than the DRZ. I think it's 9 inches front and back on the KTM. I think it's 11 plus on the DRZ. And so, yeah, it's on the pavement. It just kind of feels like a supermoto. Like I can imagine it doesn't feel too much different than the SMCR once we get to ride it. Like it felt like, oh, wow, this thing is just hunkered to the ground, planted. Like it does have a little bit heavier steering, I would say, than the DRZ, but it feels more, like the mid corner performance feels a little bit better on the KTM. And again, that's kind of where I noticed riding both of those bikes is it feels like, okay, you can feel that Duke DNA in the KTM, both on and off road, for better or worse, I would say.
And the wheels the tires are a little wider too, a little more street bikey.
Yeah, it's a 140 at the rear where the Suzuki's a 120. Like you can see, you look at the wheels and they look big. On the KTM, it looks like a big, wide sort of adventure bike wheel. It's the same wheels that go on the 390 Adventure R. So there's some things like that you notice, but and then in the dirt, I was impressed, especially for fire roads and stuff. Again, it feels lower to the ground. The suspension, they use the WP Apex suspension, like an open cartridge stuff that's derived off of their street stuff. It is
stuff, yeah. Because
the
Apex is their street line and Explore is their dirt line,
right? And then they have the Exact, which is like for their motocross.
Yeah.
But so I noticed it feels a little bit wide between your legs, the KTM, like just the ergonomics standing up off road. But and you feel the weight. I felt the weight in the tight single track. Like if you kind of hit a rock or you get a little bit off balance, you could feel the weight. But then you get on a fire road and it just feels so planted. Again, with that top end performance or engine performance, it feels like a bike that you could just, like rally. Like you just sliding corners using the quick shifter. I remember at a couple of times, like mid slide, you could just upshift mid slide and just keep the slide going. Where the Suzuki, it has good top end power, but that bike feels more suitable and tight technical off-road terrain, where the KTM feels like it performs better when it's more open, flowy, and faster.
Adam, what about you? What do you think about the on-road or the off-road prowess of this thing?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Like to Evan's point, it definitely rewards like fast, flowy, open kind of terrain. But I didn't, despite it being 30 plus pounds more than the DRZ 4S, it definitely did not feel like it was heavier than the DRZ 4S. The entire time I was riding, I'm like, God, this thing feels so light. And even in the tighter stuff, it felt light. Like they did a really good job with the packaging somehow, because it's 30 pounds more, but it certainly does not feel 30 pounds more in motion. So it's a nice bike.
Must carry that weight a little lower.
Yeah, maybe
the extra
maybe
weight is a little down low.
Yeah, just very maneuverable, just very playful. Yeah, it's a little bit, thicker through the midsection, but I don't know. I don't really necessarily think that's a bad thing. The ergonomics were spot on. It felt really good in the standing position,
Yeah. And
So-
that seat is so comfortable.
The
on
seat's
the
really
390.
comfortable, very comfortable
Yeah.
seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, much more comfortable than DRZ 4S for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. You guys keep referencing the DRZ 4S, which makes it seem like maybe these are the two competitors for each other. But then Evan said like they come at the question from different ends. What about like a CRF 300L? Where does that fit in the hierarchy? You know, like is the 390 more like a 390 or a Honda CRF 300L than a DRZ, or is it more like a DRZ? Like where does it fit in that spectrum?
Yeah.
I don't really think the CRF 300L is in the conversation between these two
Oh, wow.
bikes.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah.
lower category.
Okay.
It does feel like that a little bit, but it's funny because now this KTM, I think for the longest time, the 300L was the most affordable dual sport or lightweight dual sport, maybe other than like an XR 150L, but in that 300 plus CC or category, it's always been the most affordable. And now this KTM is the most affordable.
Yeah.
And
What's a 300L weigh? I can't.
It
think
went
off
up
the
in
top of my head.
price a little bit. It used to be like 55, and now I think last time I checked, it's 5749.
Okay. So
And then
in the same price range.
yeah,
But this has this. You
Adjustable
feel this has
system.
more performance potential than.
yeah. I mean, again, the last time I rode the CRF 300L was before they did the suspension update. They updated the suspension for 25, and I know that was one thing with the 300Ls. It was so soft, and even me at 125 pounds, like it takes very little to bottom out that suspension. And so I feel like the chassis and the 300L has good off-road capability, but it was always held back by that super soft suspension. But yeah, I think again, to me, that the CRF feels more like the Suzuki in a sense, where it just feels more dirt bikey, and then the KTM feels just again a little bit more. It feels like this new school dual sport where it's like you always hear about people taking their dual sports, whether it's an old DRZ 400 or whatever, and turning it into a lightweight adventure bike. Kind of feels like that's what KTM did here, minus the windscreen on the Enduro. Is it just feels like it's got good off-road chops, but it really has a lot of on-road performance too, whether it's, this thing will go well over 90 comfortably, the Enduro R.
That's
Like,
good.
yeah. And then the Suzuki will maybe barely meet 90, and I got the KTM to go over 100, and it still is pretty comfortable. Like you're cruising at 75 miles per hour and you're just like in the middle, still in the mid range of the RPM. So again, yeah, I don't know yeah. I feel like the 300L will probably be hurt by the KTM in sales, just because you get so much with the KTM. You get adjustable suspension, you get adjustable electronics, you get a lot of good performance on and off road, killer styling, like you get Bluetooth connectivity, like it offers a lot,
So, you guys touched on like the seat being super comfortable and that, but Adam, tell me more about the ergonomics, because you're 6 foot.
Yeah, I'm
And
6
then
foot
Evan,
tall.
How tall are you, Evan?
5'7", 5'8".
Okay, so let's go with Adam first for tall riders, then we'll go to Evan with shorter riders. So, what do you think, Adam? Ergonomics.
Yeah, I like the ergonomics on this motorcycle. The bar bend is, real off-roady. The seat is crazy comfortable. The foot pegs, oddly enough, on the 390 Adventure R, I thought the foot pegs were really high, but on the 390 Enduro R, they felt normal to me. So
is there some difference? Is there a difference in seat or foot peg placement or anything?
Yeah, the 390 Adventure R has a lower seat, so maybe it was that.
just barely. Yeah, like half an inch or maybe less than an inch, I think. But yeah, I didn't notice that, but I remember one of the other taller riders on the trip noticing that too, feeling a little bit more cramped.
So it's real comfortable to ride in the seated or standing position. It's funny how they're all Suzuki and KTM are using like the same type of handlebar bend. The handlebar bend is very similar between the Enduro R and the DRZ 4S. It's flat and low.
Flat and straight.
Flat and low. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
wide.
Yeah, you'd think a handlebar like that wouldn't be good in the standing position, but it is somehow. It's kind of odd, but it's interesting how they're all just using a flat, low bar now. but yeah, it's good. I liked it a lot.
So speaking of foot pegs, the previous off-road 390, so we'll call that the 2023 or 24 Adventure R, the foot pegs had this little bit of a kick forward to them because they used the
like Duke
chassis,
ones,
right?
Mm.
So it had like the foot pegs weren't totally flat. Are the foot pegs on the Enduro R, are they flat?
Yeah.
You know, they're not canted forward or
No, they're flat. They're decently wide and like pretty aggressively grippy. They come with rubber inserts. We had them pulled for the trip. But yeah, it's funny saying that because again, just thinking about this and riding the DRZ last night and this morning now, and just kind of looking at it, the DRZ, they widened the foot pegs for the 4S over the previous generation. And on that trip, I was like, oh, they've definitely improved it. But the KTM has even wider foot pegs, more grippy foot pegs. I was pretty impressed with the foot pegs on the Enduro R. They're flat, they're decently wide and grippy. I think they have the foot pegs on the 390 are better than the DRZ 4S, I would say.
Right on. Okay, cool. And then overall, Evan, for a shorter rider, how was it for you?
Yeah, it was interesting hearing Adam because for me it was comfortable, but to me it felt just. I wondered that riding at 5'7", 5'8", standing up, I felt comfortable, but I wondered if I felt like if I was a little bit taller, I might feel like I had to bend down and reach the bars, kind of a reach to the bars while standing up. It didn't bother me, but I was something I wondered. If I was 3 inches taller, it might be too low, but it didn't bother Joaquin. So yeah, for me it was really nice, both standing up and sitting down.
Cool.
And that wide handlebar, it gives a lot of leverage, like the ergos. Yeah.
Cool.
Seat, handlebar, foot pegs, all knocked it out of the park.
Give us like the one standout characteristic, both of you, on this bike.
Yeah, for me, it's probably the engine, especially that top end performance. It does. I wish it had more bottom end and that tighter stuff. I feel like at altitude, that's maybe I struggled. Maybe that was where I felt the weight. It just felt like in some of the tight single track and it was loose. I just couldn't get the bike to get out of the hole as quickly as I'd like. But once you did, like that engine, just with the quick shifter, it's just has that ready to race character of just like spinning it up, banging it off the rev limiter, sliding corners. So I would say that's kind of the standout feature for me. And just what you get for $5,500, I think is for me, looking at the whole package, the performance, the adjustability, the tech features, like to me, it really just does. It gives you so much for $5,500.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree that just the engine performance, just very, very playful, fast revving engine, kind of, honestly, it's almost kind of a strange, power output in that category that you have an engine that just is all high revving and high RPM, high RPM, high RPM. You'd think you'd want an engine that maybe has a little bit more low RPM performance, but whatever, it's different and it's cool. And it's cool that, KTM's doing something different and following their ready to race ethos with that type of power delivery.
Nice.
Yeah. So you guys, it was $5,500 and you keep saying ready to race. At $5,500, you would have some money left in your budget for, power parts. Did KTM show you any like power part accessories or anything that will be available for this thing?
Yeah.
They had some suspension stuff, right, Evan?
Yeah. So they had a bike with all their like accessories and stuff. We don't have prices on that stuff right now.
Yeah.
They have the quick shifter as an add-on accessory. We don't know the price on that, but we got to use it and I thought it was really good. Even though it was like the beta version, they said it's not the final version. I thought it was really impressive. And then they have all the, anodized parts you can throw on it and stuff like that. They have an exhaust. I think it's an Acro exhaust. That's an accessory. But yeah, like the big news was the suspension. They're going to offer WP Pro components is what it's called. So you can completely replace the shock. It'll be a whole new unit with an external reservoir, high and low speed compression, like a really nice unit. And then the fork is a drop-in cartridge fork. So, and it's called WP Pro components. And so I think that they said really the reason they wanted to do that was going to adventure rallies, whether it's theirs or other adventure rallies, and seeing how in the adventure dual sport segment, it's really popular to, you know, take your suspension in to a tuner and do some aftermarket stuff to it. So they thought, oh, we'll just offer it as an accessory. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Cool. So what was the letdown? What was the one thing you didn't like? Biggest criticism.
I have two. Again, I wish it had more bottom end performance, but I also understand they didn't really do much with this engine, pulling it from the Duke. The mapping's a little bit different, but other than that, I'm pretty sure they said the gear ratios, all that stays the same. So it uses a 48 tooth rear sprocket, which seems pretty like a lot. Where the Suzuki, the DRZ, I think is what is it? 40. It used to be a 47. I think they went to 43. I don't remember. Sorry, I'm just can't remember exactly. But yeah, to me, I wish it had more bottom end performance. And I think the suspension for riding super aggressive, fast off-road riding just was a little bit of a letdown. It just didn't seem like it. I bottomed the suspension out quite a bit, and just like the damping control just didn't seem quite up to par for like charging hard off-road like you could with the Suzuki. That was something I noticed with the Suzuki, is pushing the pace on the press launches. You didn't feel like you're overriding the bike. You would push it hard and be like, okay, I can handle this. Where it seemed like every time I tried to push the pace on the 390, it was telling me, hey, you're at the limit. So
Gotcha.
I would say a little more bottom end, a little bit better suspension.
Adam?
Yeah, like that was for me, it was just the engine note. Like the engine sounds like an Indian engine. I know that sounds like a strange thing to say, but it just, they have this like, this just not really awesome sound to them. They just sound really plain and just the.
And
so I didn't really.
There's a lot of mechanical noise. It seems like from the Dukes from before. Like it seems like you can hear the piston going up and down inside the cylinder, and you can hear the valves and the camshafts doing their thing. Like it seems like there's just a lot of mechanical noise.
Yeah.
90s.
That's a good point. It's a good point. It just when it's idling, it just has it just doesn't sound awesome to me.
Okay.
It that's kind of a gripe, and some of that mechanical noise I think plays tuned, but just the tone of the muffler sounds like it just doesn't sound awesome. And then again, the suspension, like it glides over, little stuff, it glides right over it, but medium stuff, you definitely, when you hit stuff, you feel it. It's like bam, ba-bam, and that was kind of annoying to me. But on all the little stuff, it glides right over it. But that's really my only critique, is just the engine sound, at idle, and then just when you hit like medium things, it just you feel them through the controls.
Yeah, you overwhelm it.
You're riding a KTM, so sometimes you forget that it's a $5,500 KTM, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, yeah, because with that engine, you can get going quick. You get going fast very quickly,
right.
And then you're like, whoa, there's a bump, and then you're bah, and you're like, oh.
Yeah,
so.
The bike didn't really get out of control. It just hurt. It always like hurt my body. Like, ow.
I felt like I was beating up on it, just like bottoming it out a lot. But yeah. And I pumped a bunch of compression into the fork too, and just still dealt with that a little bit. The shock really more so than the fork, I would say.
Okay. So then there's going to be people that ask, which is to us is an obviously question that doesn't make a lot of sense, but they're like, well, they already have a dual sport. They have a 350 EXCF. Like, why would they do this? But those are obviously two very different types of motorcycles, right? Like the person that's looking at this and looking at the 350 EXCF, not the same person, right?
Yeah, I agree. Totally different customers, regardless of your skill level. I think, what you're going to do with the EXCF is a lot different than what you would want to do with the Enduro R.
Well,
like
the purchase price is pretty different as well.
Yeah. Like if we rode that same route on a 350 EXCF, you'd be fine. You would do it, but you'd be totally more comfortable on the Enduro R, especially on that pavement stuff. And
so people aren't going to be getting a discount EXC by buying the Enduro R.
No,
right?
I would say no.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think we've hit our time here. Any other quick insights before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, when
Go
do we get
biking.
one at the office? I'd like to ride that thing.
Yeah, there you go.
We got one coming soon. Maybe yeah.
Yeah, good. I think there's you keep saying DRZ a lot in this conversation, which means that there is definitely a shootout in order,
Yeah.
right? So,
Mhm.
okay, well, we'll get the two and see which one shakes out better, I guess. So, with that, it seems to me that the 390 is like this middle ground between a gnarly dual sport and some of the softer machines with a lot of ability on the street and some pretty decent off-road ability. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's $5,500, which is rad. So that's awesome. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. It seems like both the guys enjoyed it for the most part and had mostly positive things to say, which is awesome to see another inexpensive dual sport jump into the segment. So if you like what we're doing, hit the like button, subscribe, leave comments down below. Let us know what you think of this new 390 Enduro R, and we'll catch you in the next episode.